Allah, Lord of the world. The Elombe we worship, the Elombe we ask for help. Guide us to the path of those who has not been gracious. Amen. Apparently, what is taking place now is that we are appearing in court on this Monday, in which this tape will be shown to the Apollo Theater audience. We are seeking to...
Adam?
Yes,
sorry. I have to have you to look at this camera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because you're looking
No, let him back to that again.
Now you gotta turn it over. Then
you hold your arm up, please, bro. Huh? Hold your arm up too.
Oh yeah, okay. Like this one?
Yeah, like this.
See if the people think I'm faking it, man.
الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Seek refuge in Allah, descend me from the curse of Shaitan. And listen to merciful, all praise due to Allah, Lord of the world. The Elombe we worship, the Elombe we ask for help. Guide us to the path of those whom has not been gracious. Amen.
Amen.
We're at the North Infirmary Center at Rikers Island on Friday, November the 23rd. We were with Brother Adam Abdul Hakim, along with Hajj Idris Muhammad, Elombe Brath, Mr. Muhammad, and myself represent the Adam Abdul Hakim Defense Committee. And Brother Hakim will now explain to you the latest developments in his long struggle with the authorities over the events of November 19th, 1986.
Brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, this has been a strange and, excuse me.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
I seek refuge in Allah to save us from the curse of Shaitan, the beneficent, the merciful, all praise due to Allah, the Lord of the world. The Elombe we worship, the Elombe we ask for help. Guide us to the path of those who has not been graceful. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. We're at the North Infirmary Command at Rikers Island on Friday, November 23rd, approximately 12:30 this afternoon. We're with Brother Adam Abdul Hakim, of course you know, formerly known as Larry Davis, along with Hajj Idris Muhammad, who is to my extreme left and is a member, co-founder of the Adam Abdul Hakim Defense Committee. I'm Elombe Brath, and myself and Brother Muhammad have been associated with Mr. Hakim for at least the last 4 years in trying to detail to the public the events that took place on the 19th of November 1986 and to try to build solidarity around his case. Brother Hakim.
Brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, my struggle has been a long struggle, and my reason for this appearance on this videotape is to explain the facts and the whole deal in which myself and other youth had been through. Apparently on November 1986, several, well, I would say 35 detectives and police officers, squad units and all, had burst through my sister's apartment and with the attempt of trying to murder me. All praise is due to Allah that they failed in the process of doing so. And when the smoke cleared, I lived. However, myself and the youth who will be at the Apollo today, rather, on Monday, we'll be talking about what they know about this drug ring involving cops, district attorneys, and others who have been involved with this drug ring. Apparently, myself, Elombe, Brath, and Elombe have been building to gain support and have people advocate their support to this long and lasting struggle to have me be free. However, I have been incarcerated since December of 1986 on the 6th of that year of December. And since my incarceration, I have been through a humongous amount of brutality and setups, even at the upstate prisons, Comstock Prison, Attica Prison, where the people who are familiar with the Attica major riot, in which had took place back in the 70s, a similar riot had taken place on May of 1990, and it was never reported to the press. However, a lot of people tend to have the wrong opinion about me and the wrong impression about me. I am no brutal or insensitive beast or no mad dog killer. However, I want to also make it clear to you that as you see this tape today, you see myself and the two brothers, Elombe, Brath, and Elombe, sitting to keep me in a straight angle on the floor here, because I had to drag myself in here today, like I have been doing for several weeks. And apparently, right now, myself and I'm paralyzed from the waist down, and I have made it clear to the public about this. Although the white press has continued to cover up about the situation concerning my legs. The same place in which I was paralyzed in, I was paralyzed for the purposes of, there at the same jail here, at Rikers Island, where Judge Leska ordered a major investigation. This was the front page of Newsday on November 5th in 1990. He just ordered a major investigation here on Rikers Island. And I want everybody to see this clear as the sky, because maybe some people haven't picked up Newsday article. And this deals with 50 inmates being brutally beaten in the same jail where I was beaten and paralyzed at. And that is Tompkins Center, which is also known as HDM. And Judge Alaska ordered a major investigation because he seen that there was evidence to substantiate that there is officers who are attacking inmates in that facility. However, I was again paralyzed in that facility, beaten and left paralyzed at that facility. My reason for asking Minister Brown and Brother Hampton to come out here today was the purpose of trying to express myself as much as possible over this videotape, so that you, the audience, can see what is happening. Like I said, I did drag myself in here today, and as a result of that, I was also denied a chair to sit in during this interview, so I remained on the floor. And it was my understanding that a judge had told the correction department for legal visits I am to receive a wheelchair. But however, they have not offered me a wheelchair, or nor have they offered me my neck brace back. As you very well know, my neck is in an angle so that I can focus on directly into the camera here, so that people will know what's taking place. Also, they have taken my neck brace and my wheelchair. And being that they have done this, I'm appealing this judge's ruling, Judges Stephen Barrett and who also Judge Richard Lowe, who is total conspirators of this vendetta against me also. I will also focus on the fact that myself, Ricardo Burgos, who's a co-defendant, and who was a co-defendant rather, he was acquitted 2 days ago of charges that he was attempted to murder a drug dealer, I believe, and he was acquitted. This is the 7th. I will point out now that this is the 7th acquittal of all the cases that were launched against myself and my co-defendant Burgos and my nephew James Patron, and he's home, James Patron. But myself and Ricardo Burgos remain here in prison, and as a result of remaining here in prison, him and myself are going through torture. I want to also point out that he was a part of the drug ring and several other youth who will be speaking today or at the Apollo today when this tape is shown. I may sound somewhat nervous because that is my reaction because of knowing where this tape will be shown at and the people. And I have always been, in a sense, somewhat nervous when it comes to looking in the camera. However, I want to also talk about that since my incarceration also, where that on September 7th, where I was, September 7th, it was September 7th, I believe, yes, of 1990, where I was brutally attacked, and the videotape will be shown today, also at the Apollo, rather on Monday.
You know, the brother also, we need to say this, that it's not so much that Adam is nervous because he's basically not a person that seeks a lot of publicity. What he's doing right now in dealing with these interviews is to try to speak directly to the people so they will know exactly what is happening and hear his side of the story. But he's also not well because of the ordeal that he's gone through, and it's never a day that goes by where there's not some kind of incident. From the first time I had an opportunity to talk with him since 1986, I believe it was. No, it was 87, because the incident happened in 86. It was about either April or May of 1987. When you can see the deterioration in his condition from when you first met him. I know that Haj Idris can say the same thing. That we have seen the physical brutality that's taken on this man because he is in a different physical state, not just the paralysis, which is obviously anybody who will see the tape of the incident that took place where the correctional officers beat him and dragged him through these corridors. So I just wanted you to know, right now it's an arduous task for him to even sit here because the angle he's at, he does not have a chance to really put himself against the wall. So if you see him, you see me like this, it's partially to try to support him. And you can see, if it wasn't for that, the brother would have no problem supporting himself. And so we really want folks to know just what the situation is, because a lot of times we've been calling radio stations and talking, LIB, RL, or BAI, and folks out there think that we are alarmists. But as you can see, and as you will see eventually when you see the videotapes, this is no sham. This is a real deal. And it's something that needs to be dealt with, because what it indicates is that when people are incarcerated, that the rehabilitation that is supposed to take place, whether they're guilty or not guilty, but there's supposed to be a rehabilitation structure within the prison system, that sometimes vengeance and retaliation is the order of the day.
I'd like to say also, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay. Rahim, in the name of Allah, compassionate, merciful. Since the time that Elombe and I created the defense committee for Adam Abdul Hakim, and prior to the shootout, three Muslim brothers that I know, Salahuddin, Saleh, and Sharif, who met Adam in the Bronx and invited him to Islam, which is a point which many people don't know, that this man did not take Islam, embrace Islam in the prison system just to save his life or protect himself, because he's physically able to protect himself when he was in the street. But now he's paralyzed by the correctional officers. But getting back to the point is that the brothers told him point blank that he should not, he cannot be involved with them if he is involved with any drug dealing cops. And since me being a part of the African Islamic Mission, which is the community in Brooklyn, and the leadership of Imam Elombe Baba, which is a self-help, do-for-self type of community which Adam and I belong to, I seen his progress grow in Islam. And I gave him a shahada, invited him to the faith when he was in Bronx House of Detention, which I met him on a legal visit. And I say for one thing, this brother is a strong soldier for Islam and for the upholding the rights of all African men, women, and youth. And that's why we're here today, to support him. And if Allah wills, we're going to be here tomorrow and when he's outside. And we're letting everybody know that the brother definitely needs the support of the people. Because one day they knocked at his door and tried to kill him. They may come to your door this evening and try to kill you.
Adam, tell them definitely what took place. They're going to get an opportunity to see this, but this is after a long series of incidents where the different correctional officers, and you can name them if you see fit. I also want to interject this too, that myself and Al-Hajj Idris Muhammad also act as legal assistants to the attorneys. We've been doing this since when Bill Kunstler and Lynn Stewart were the attorneys, and we've been all the way through until now when Michael Warren and Fernando Tapia are the attorneys. So we also are serving in a legal capacity in our regard to this interview.
And a team also.
Team Centrale also.
Yeah, Brother Team Centrale is a legal assistant also to the case.
So the events, so the people have an idea what was happening in the film that they either have seen already or going to see that caused the correctional officers to act in the manner in which they did.
Well, apparently myself and El-Hajj Idris and a news reporter named Michael O'Neill from the Big Red News had shown up that day, on that same day, September of the 7th, 1990. When they shown up that day, I was upstairs being searched, and that was shown on the tape also. And they came harassing me, and no other inmates was being searched but myself. And I had not done anything to be isolated or confined into a cell. They violated my due process rights and my constitutional rights, where that they have indicated that I was going to be locked down. I made it clear to them I want to know what they're locking me down for. What did I do to be locked down? And they at one point they just said you're going to be locked down, and if my memory served me correctly, I believe they said that I was going to be locked down for a certain amount of days, and that's it. And that was only for purposes of keeping me away from the press. However, at that time, after I went downstairs, after they had searched the cell and threw all my stuff around and threw things all on the bed and didn't want to put me there, but had an inmate come in and clean it up. And then put me on the bed. The inmate put me on the bed himself, and I returned it. I then went to the visit, the legal visit with Hodge, and the media visit. At that point, I then talk with Michael O'Neill about the assault, because earlier it was also an assault on me, and they had the camera off by Captain Ricardo, who was the sole plotter of the whole vendetta on that day. And in general terms, at that point, I had indicated to El Haj that I had been assaulted upstairs, and that these people are constantly harassing me, and that these correction guards and captains and wardens are constantly harassing me. And he had spoke with Adep Jamont after the interview with Michael O'Neill. They didn't want me to even make it to the interview with Michael O'Neill, so their purpose was to hold me upstairs searching the cell so Michael O'Neill would get frustrated and leave, the news reporter. That's why they had searched me, from what I have learned. At that point, I went downstairs. I was downstairs after the interview with Michael O'Neill and El Haj, I had indicated to him that I was assaulted that day in the daytime, and that I had shown him my finger, which was broke by the correction guard, who they claimed wrote me a ticket, and he broke my finger and wrote me a ticket. But however, they El Haj approached Deb Jamont, and Deb Jamont told El Haj that I was gonna that he should mind his business, and he said that I was his business, and that he should not and then he told him that I would that something was going to happen to me if he didn't mind his business. And Haj told him, "What do you mean something going to happen?" Rephrased that, and he said, "You heard what I said." And at that time, I told Haj, don't even say nothing to him, because they waiting for you to leave, and when you leave, they're gonna move on me. So when Haj left, I went to Juma services to let all the Muslims know that what Deb had said. And when I returned from Juma services, there was riot gear officers waiting for me. They came upstairs, and when I went upstairs, they was upstairs already, and someone was coming up behind me, and they were there at the elevator door. As soon as I got off the elevator, I went past them, and I said, they must be up to no good. And then they definitely was. And when I went to the cell area, they came in the cell area, so they had to provoke something by saying, "Oh, you're gonna lock in." And it was 4 o'clock. The count was over. There was no reason for me to lock in. I had no tickets, and there was no justification for what they did. And up to this day, there's no justification. There was no signature ticket against me or nothing from myself or anybody. I never received anything, no due process or nothing, knowing about nothing, and no hearing or nothing. And then they told me to lock in, and I said, "For what? For what? What did I do?" If my memory served me correctly, I asked them, "What did I do?" They said, "Just lock in." And I told them I want to see a doctor. I had told them earlier I wanted to see a doctor about my hand being broke. They refused to let me see a doctor. They didn't want me to see a doctor. Only until after they attacked me and dragged me down the catwalk and on my head, put their knee in my kidneys and their knee in my chest. So I got a tumor as a result of that. And blood had clogged up in the middle of my chest. And when I got to the hospital, it was 9 o'clock at night, and this happened at 4 o'clock. And when I got there, the doctor, blood had built up in the middle of my chest and cut off my windpipe area, and they had to stick a tube down my throat to drain the blood out. And before they did that, I was gone, the doctor said, and they had to give me the shock, the electric shock treatment thing, and bring me back. And then they stuck the tube down my throat and drained the blood out so that I can start the breathing again. And at that time, when I got there, there was a assigned waiting doctor named Dr. Porter there. And I didn't practically see the doctor until 12 o'clock at night when he sent me an x-ray. I got there at 9, and they hold me in the thing, and that's how come the blood was building up. It was being slowly as a result of them putting their knee in my chest and in my kidney area, and my kidneys messed up in my bladder area also. They have, when I got there, this doctor was waiting. He was an assigned doctor with a court monitor whose name was Bodak, who's a total conspirator. He was there also waiting there with the doctor. That time he was discussing the matter with the doctor, and he had no right to be there discussing anything because he wasn't there for me. He was there for his own purposes. And he had indicated to the doctor to cover up the extent of my injuries, in which Dr. Porter did, and this was at Bellevue Hospital. And if you listen to the tape, the soundtrack of the tape, the actual beating, you will hear my head hit the floor. I had received blood was coming out of my head, and also I had a concussion. I was out when I if you, like I said, when you look at the tape, listen to the soundtrack, because the tape, the track itself shows that I had bumped my head, and if you look at the injury report itself, the doctor said that nothing was wrong with me, I just needed aspirin, and that was it. And he sent me back, and he lied, and this doctor totally covered the whole scene up in which has happened, and the extent of my injuries. However, if you you look at this, listen to the soundtrack real good now, because you'll hear this sound where I bumped my head, and there was nothing, and no indication on the report he filled out, the doctor, saying anything about my head nor about the bleeding, in which you will see on the videotape also. And this will go to showing you the conspiracy and the vendetta, and how this doctor has covered up the extent of my injuries. And I received a neck brace. As I said, it's hard for me in my neck. And since I received it, they have taken it away. The same officer named Duffy who attacked me, he came in the cell and took my wheelchair and my neck brace. As a result of me exposing what has happened to me, and me being in the wheelchair and with the neck brace and talking to the press. And that was the purpose of keeping me away from the press. And they didn't think I would drag myself to see the press and let the people know exactly what is happening.
I'd like to answer a question to the brother here. I know Elombe is interested also, but this is very important also. I know that there are drug dealing cops, detectives, DAs in the Bronx, and I'm really proud of you for bringing that point out, but could you let us know who these people are and where they're from?
Yes, but you got the district attorney office, Robert Johnson's office. It's now Robert Johnson's office. He was Marilyn Monroe at the time, but he's deceased now, and he knew very much about it because he was a part of it. But he's deceased now. But you got Assistant District Attorney William Flack, Brian Wilson. These are assistants, and Michael Bernardino, and another one named Johnson. He's a European. He's not the black Johnson that's there. And these are the DAs who have given myself and others drugs to distribute, and along with Detective Tom McCarron, Donald Sullivan, Joe Blank, Crazy Joe Blank, Hennessy, Ronald Hicks, and a host of other names. And they have Detective Perkins, and they have, we have this information where we have cards and evidence and license plate numbers and the calendars to bring forth enough to have indictments brought against these cops and district attorneys. However, Johnson has no desire to bring any charges against these individuals who are distributing drugs in the African and Latino community, as well as against the correction guards who attacked me. His investigation against these correction guards has been a total failure because he claimed that the witnesses are not on Rikers Island, and I have just seen the witnesses, outside the door there, myself, Elombe, and how I just seen the witnesses outside the door before we got on this camera and before Minister Brown came, and they.
Okay, what's your point?
On the names of the
Yeah,
the
and I
beats.
tell you why.
I'm calming down now, so I'll go after you
Yeah.
now. I'm ready.
I'm cool on the roll though.
Mario
Cool on him because they
he's
either
deceased.
they're deceased, but he also the one that said the indictment was bad, and you don't want people to start using that as a diversion.
But that was his plan to help me get over, to keep my mouth closed. So, no, you would help me get off too if you tell it on everybody. And you don't want to go to jail.
You're putting together a permanent record.
Yeah.
You know, and once that permanent record is put together, is there, is out there, and therefore I think you should, build it with as much foundation that you can. It might do two things. One, the record is already out there, so no matter what they do, try to do to you, you have established that record, and at the same time, it shows the motive in there, the real motive.
On that point, see, that's what I'm gonna try to bring in, but he could bring it himself. There's 3 young kids in the last year, 3 of the young kids who were actually selling drugs in the ring that have been killed.
I was gonna get you.
But I just wanted to
that's
set
he gonna
some
do
kind
that.
of foundation because this is the real good stuff. We ain't have much time. We need to really deal with it.
Yeah, you don't mean make it that.
Let's do it.
Go ahead, let's hit it.
Also, these individuals, as I said, Detective Donald Sullivan, Joe Blank, John Sullivan, Hennessy, these guys are from the 44th precinct, some from the 48th and the 40th precinct, same precinct in which Miss Mitchell was murdered from, that same precinct, and there has been arrest in that same precinct.
That's Mary Mitchell.
Mary Mitchell, I said Miss Mitchell's, but Mary Mitchell, Mrs. Mary Mitchell, and this is the same precinct along 44th, 34th, and 48th. They have the 44th precinct officers who are officers who are detectives who have murdered. Who have murdered a brother named Miles Davis, who has the same slave name as myself, and this has not been exposed. This guy was a part of the drug ring as well, and it's young. The same detective who was involved with the drug activity, Joe Blank, Donald, and John Sullivan. These two have pushed this man deliberately off the bridge. His woman has seen it, and also they shot a brother named Steve in the heart, and another brother named Chance they shot in the head. And this is why I remain in prison. Since I've been upstate, they've been killing brothers to keep them from coming to expose what I have been exposing for years now. And this has never been exposed to the white press, and I believe the New Alliance was the only one that covered it at one point, where that they exposed what Joe Blank and Sullivan had done, and this is very much real, and it's very important that people take a stand, because someday, somehow, somewhere, someplace, you may find your child in the same predicament as myself and other youth, and these cops and DAs do not care. They may show that they care, but believe me, they do not care. And I know what I'm talking about, and I've been saying this for the longest, because a lot of people tend to reject what I say, but I tell you, it has shown throughout the years of what I have been saying, where the people are coming forward with, and as a result of these guys being murdered, and another youth whose legs were broken by one Detective Sullivan, because he refused to lie on me, and he was involved with the drug ring, they broke his leg and took him in and never brought charges on him. And
how do these young people get involved in the drug ring? Maybe you can give us a little history.
Well, when I had involved, it was at the age of 15, where I was forced. They had came around, picked myself up in Burgos we was on a moped, it's like a scooter motorbike, and they pulled us over and they put us in the car, told us we was going to jail. And you young and naive and not familiar with the law, and don't know whether or not whatever they're saying is true, as to going to jail. And we ain't never been in jail. This is my first time ever doing time in jail. So at that time, you can imagine how fiery it was. And when they approached us, and they took us and put us in the car and told us that we was going to jail. And they pulled around the corner from my house, because this was right around my house, my mother's house, right around the corner. And if you check the record, the detectives talk about how he used to come around and pick, if you check the court records, how he used to pick myself up and pull me around the corner. And this is Detective Perkins, Joe Blank. They used to pull me around the corner and talk to me, and he said he's done this on several occasions. And I believe this slipped out of his mouth. He didn't mean to say it during the trial, but just by the grace of our law, the truth had to come free out of his mouth. And all praise is due to law for that, because it was very important, and that was one of the factors that the jury considered. They said this guy is doing something with these police, but why would they be pulling coming around his mother, picking him up? My mother testified that the cops would come in all the time up to my room, and she verified it, and how they threatened her and told her that they was going to put it right in my head, and how they threatened her and pushed her and cursed at her and said, we're going to put a bullet right in your son's head. You raised a dirty bastard, and he double-crossed us. Yeah, that was Joe Blank and Sullivan and another, I forgot this other
Detective
Nealon. Yeah, Nealon was there. It was Nealon, and my memory is certainly correctly. I
Joe Blank was there.
Yeah, it was four.
One of the things that's important about the tape, too, which incident was shot by the correctional department, is that you can see Adam's legs, and the normal instinct by everybody has seen this, has commented on it, would be if you're being attacked by that many people, for you to use every available, defense. And of course, your legs to kick or to push or to try to kick somebody away from you would be a normal gut reaction, instinct, even if you didn't think about it. But you can see his legs are dead. I mean, they don't move. They just drag passively along wherever his body is going. And I think what people need to know, because this has been contested by non-medical authorities of the state, because of their own subjective views of the case, and of course of Adam Abdul Hakim. So Adam, I think what you should do too is to tell them exactly how you came to be paralyzed. What brought on this paralysis, and where did it take place?
It took place right in the same prison where this Judge Lester ordered the investigation, and it's on the front page of Newsday on November 5th.
When did it take place?
This took place in '88. Last year, HDM. Yeah, it was last year in HDM.
How did you come to be paralyzed?
Well, apparently the same correction guard, a European named Guadagno, it's a strange European name. He approached along with my attorney. Me and my attorney was going to visit. I was going to visit and meet up with my attorney, and when I was going there, he told an inmate to throw some milk on me who would work with the system, some inmate who works with the system. The inmate threw it, and not knowing that my lawyer was right there and witnessed the whole incident, Michael Warren, my attorney told the correction guard, Gadagna, that he was going to see him in court because he had witnessed it and seen it for his own eyes. At that point, Gadagna was upset. He was waiting to get even with me, and as a result of him being upset and waiting to get even with me, now I'm paralyzed. Him and another officer named, I forgot his name, I got it documented. He was waiting up. When I came out for recreation one time, and this was when my legs was working at that time, when he had paralyzed me at that time. When I came out for recreation, I was going out to the yard. He pushed me up the stairs. I had a crutch at that time because my knee was messed up at that time. And he pushed me off the staircase.
The knee was messed up from what?
That was another incident here at that same jail where that officer pushed me from behind and a nail went up in my kneecap. At that time, they and I never received proper medical attention for this. The metal still remains, pieces of fragments remain still in my leg. However, I seen it on the X-ray also. That's how I know. When I got out there and to the yard, he pushed me up the staircase, and I was by myself out in the yard, and it was strange. I was by myself. I usually go out, and inmates go out with me, but they took me out by myself. And the guy had the stick, and when I was approaching the gate to tell the guy who had the stick behind the gate to call the captain as a result of Gagnon pushing me off the staircase, he stuck the stick and hit me in the face with it, and the dad came up behind me and grabbed me from my neck and put his knee. And these are special housing unit where these are like martial artists, correction guards, and he took his knee and he's a big European, heavy set, very muscle bound. And, I'm very short. I'm about 5'3", and he's about 6 something. And he put his knee behind my back and picked me up off the floor, and with his knee. And I heard the bones, something, whatever it was, in my back snapped, and they dropped me to the floor and they started kicking me in my section here in my stomach area and in the rib area.
And you have not walked since that?
Since that day, they put me on a stretcher and they took me to the hospital, and they ran some tests, and they said their test was okay, but they cannot say scientifically that there was nothing wrong. They said that their test was okay, but scientifically they can't say nothing is wrong because they don't have the adequate what you would call medical utensils to make that determination. They only can say what they did do was, as far as their test was concerned, some of the tests, and they haven't ran all the tests. But they also found in those tests that it was a bulging disc, and that has came out in court. The judge has made it clear what one doctor had indicated to him who reviewed the CAT scan. As a result of that, I have been in a wheelchair since then. But as you see now, I have no wheelchair. I've been dragging myself around. And this is considered dehumanized. And one thing I learned is that their policy under the correction policy is that their policy is care, custody, and control. And they show no compassion, nor do they care about how I get around. So, it's very important that people stand firm when it comes to making the point in helping myself and the youth who come forward, and stand firm with them to expose what is going on in our communities.
Larry, how many times have you been attacked since you've been incarcerated?
How many times? Countless times. You can't even put up your fingers to count how many times. I mean, so many times that some things that happen, I don't even keep documents of some of the little things that happen. Although they may be little, punch here and assault here, or I've even been stabbed here by correction guard and in my arm right here as a result of me trying to get to the Howard Beach kid, John Lester, who threw something at me and it missed me. And as I was going to approach him, and I didn't even touch him at no time, and the correction guard stabbed me. And when he knew, in fact, that this guy had threw something at me.
Well, Adam, I'd like to ask you a question. You've been framed for the 4th time by the cops and the district attorneys in the Bronx, who are selling drugs, I believe, was what you're saying. Getting back to it now, could you let us know what type of case is being held against you, and also could you speak about the false determination judgment that was placed upon you dealing with your conviction of the gun charge, which is ridiculous?
Yes. Okay. Well, I'd like to touch upon it that I have been charged with every case they can think of, except for mugging a little baby and mugging old women. I mean, it has gotten beyond this point. I mean, one thing you learn in these cases is that they accuse me of killing drug dealers. However, since I've been making it clear and since the evidence showed clearly in the Manhattan case and throughout all the cases that the cops are the sole murderers and killers of these drug dealers, and the evidence showed clearly, and an instance in the case in Manhattan, the sister said her brother, who was a drug dealer for the cops and an informer for the cops and who worked for the cops and was selling drugs for the cops, had informed on the cop, and as a result of him informing, the week after the cop, that same day he had informed, the cop told him he was going to put a bullet in his head when he catch him. The strangest thing is that the guy did die with a bullet to his head, this drug dealer, and the cop, the sister testified that it was a cop who killed her brother. I was acquitted of those charges. A lot of people never got the chance to know about what has taken place in the courtroom.
Reverend Brown, when you're taping, is that camera on all three of us, or just on one person at a time?
No.
That correction guard, as a result of him listening, he taps on the door to tell us time is up. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, they had me waiting all day and had the brothers waiting all day to get in here.
You're waiting, right?
Yeah. And that was just for purposes of making them frustrated and wanting them to leave. They don't want me talking to the press. They don't want this to be known. However, like I said, the case and dealing with the Manhattan situation, it was never exposed to that extent where that it was clear. The sister said she was in the apartment when her brother was murdered, and that the cop had killed her brother. He had threatened her a week before that. He had came that day, and he had shot her brother right in the head and killed him. And this is trial testimony, and this is documented. However, I've been charged with every case, like I said, every case they can think of, every unsolved case they can never can think of. And I remain in prison now of a sentence of 5 to 15, in which Bernard Getz received 1 year for the same charge. And I have never did any time. I'm just as under the same status as Bernard Getz.
Adam, excuse me for a second. I want to explain how could a judge, the judge, what was his name again?
Judge Bernard Freed.
Yeah, Judge Freed. Well, showing that Judge Freed was incompetent. He's an incompetent judge. You know, another European, very incompetent. Should be off the bench. He charged the jury incorrectly, purposely, to legally lynch this man, railroad this man, which made him look like a fool. Basically, what happened was that if a person has been accused of attempted murder and the weapons that were used, according to the European law, for attempted murder, they should have been dismissed also. But unfortunately, the jurors, not knowing this, because they wasn't charged correctly, convicted our beloved brother here. But I'd like for you to let the audience know about your present case, and especially about the professional witnesses hired by the Bronx CA and about them giving them money, paying them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, this here, if you can zero in on this, Robert Johnson made a public statement that the check, this is all vouchers and receipts for money, that he never signed a check or had his office sign a check for one of the witnesses. You can zero in on this, a $300 check to, I believe, George Matos, who's one of the witnesses. and one of the liars in this case. Apparently, this next case I'm going up for, I've been acquitted of 3 cases. My co-defendant Burgers have been acquitted of 2 cases. And my nephew, James Patron, who's a good kid and had nothing to do with none of this nonsense, who they snatched off the street to try to get in to lie on me. And all of them refused to lie on me. And as a result of that, those who was coming for it, as I said, those guys who were coming for it, they were murdered by the cops. The youth who were coming for it, they were murdered by the cops. These are also receipts of other monies. By Detective Gollop, who's one of the drug dealing, Michael Gollop, who's one of the drug dealing detectives. And as you see, that's a $75 voucher receipt, and it says $75 for information regarding the homicide. So he's paying for information for someone to make information come about. Now, this witness here, George Mathos, and this other witness here, excuse me, Keith. Bingo Gall, he is the same. Michael Gollop has paid him money and other monies also. And as you see here, it says the same thing regarding transportation and food. And the other one is regarding milk and food for his child. And this, the check, is one of the main issues. He also, just to show you that D. Johnson is a liar, he made a public statement on WLIB that he did not have, what that says, Robert Johnson's district attorneys of the county of the Bronx. That's his office. And I just want everybody to see, just to show that this guy's a ridiculous Donald Duck and liar.
And Adam, I have to ask you a question. Now, I've read some majority of your court papers, and I see here from the Bronx Detective Bureau receipt from CI.
CI.
What does CI mean?
That means confidential informer. CI means confidential informer, and that's who these guys are. These it couldn't be that much confidential, but we have these papers here. So I mean, however, we did receive them from other attorneys who know that these guys are liars and have testified in a proceeding that they picked out 2 witnesses, two guys on the same day of this murder, and as the suspects and the killers of this drug dealer. And it was until after they received these monies here on these voucher slips that they changed their testimony months later, and then turned around and said, no, it wasn't those 2 guys. It was Larry Davis and his brother. It is a total lie. And all the charges launched against me are lie, and just another attempt to keep me quiet so that they can fabricate and convict and murder me in a state prison, as they have tried, upstate Comstock Prison in Attica. All praise due to Allah. I survived all that, and I will maintain surviving and staying strong no matter what. But it's very important that people understand what is going on. It's so much stuff, and we're very pressed for time here because of the fact that the correction guard, just before the tape went off, tapped on the door and said our time is up, and we barely had really enough time to conduct this interview. However, we're also asking people to come out to the courtroom this Monday also at 12 o'clock after this tape and other information is exposed to the public at the Apollo Theater, and support this issue very strongly because, like I said, it doesn't only represent myself anymore. It has gotten to a broad sense where that a lot of youth are involved with it, and some or trying to get away from it, are being either killed or framed, or just to shut their mouths, or to get rid of them permanently so that they wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, because you get rid of drugs in the African and Latino community, the so-called astronomical crime rate would drop so drastically that it would be a negligible statistic, and the community could have a chance to heal itself and start to rebuild. What is happening now is that drugs that are actually promoted in the African community has created a kind of social chaos that has broken up families, has created a danger where children are not even can actually walk through the street because of people fighting over territory. And the people who are sworn to uphold the law, if they're involved in something like that, then that's a particular type of criminality that needs to be dealt with. I think that what Adam Abdul Hakim has done is to put his life on the line more than anybody, even special prosecutors, in the fight against drugs. Because as a person who was inveigled into selling drugs, by the police, who are sworn to uphold the law and prevent drugs from coming to our community, he has actually now created a situation where he's been presented as a drug dealer by the real drug dealers who are now out to kill him and some of those other young people who also were swindling to becoming enemies of their own people. And as a result of that, I think that the public needs to deal with that. Ab, don't you think you could tell them some things that they could actually do?
Yes. Let me just collaborate on what you just said about how they call me a drug dealer. If you learned, the police and district attorney's office have never called me a drug dealer. If you learn about that, and that's something to consider, because if they would have called me a drug dealer, I think there would have been an investigation on the way. Because somebody said, now, if he, how do you know he was dealing drugs? And if you do know, not only on the sense where I say I have been dealing drugs, but they have never called me a drug dealer. The district attorney's office, nor have the cops ever called me a drug dealer. What they did say was that I was supposed to be responsible for the deaths of drug dealers. But that is something to consider, because due to the fact that if they never call me a drug dealer, they don't want to be associated as the fact that I have been bringing this information out concerning this drug dealing. And if it ever showed that I was a drug dealer, then the next step is, well, where did he get the drugs from? And I think that is a point in which people should look at. And like Elombe said, I think people should get involved with this, because it's very important. And I mean, it represents every child now, because it's gotten in a broad sense. It's in the general terms now, where that kids are touching it and getting involved with it, and don't know what they're getting themselves involved with. It was by the grace of Allah that I survived, and I appreciate and thank Minister Brown for allowing us the time, and because as you just heard the tap on the window, people might not hear it, but we hear it. That's the correction guards, because they don't really want me to speak out concerning this issue, and it's very important that this information get out.
Adam, before you finish, I know we were discussing before Minister Brown came, since we, Elombe and I, haven't asked the people to contribute any funds for a fundraiser, but today I'd like for you to speak about that.
Well, what we're trying to do is raise this internationally, and it takes the support of the people to do that. And we are asking people to contribute what they can, so that we can take my story all over the world and let people know all over the world what is going on here in America. Because the racism here is more worse than that in South Africa. And the sense of why I say that is because that which is here is covered up, and that which is over in South Africa is in plain view, so we know how to respond to that in South Africa. But what is here is it's something that we don't know about. They claim they're not racist, and we, in all reality, we do know that they are. And because if there wasn't, if the racism here wasn't that devastating, those brothers in Howard Beach and Bensonhurst would not have died. Because what you don't know will hurt, and that's why it's a shame that people don't understand the politics of this government. And this government is vicious. Bush is vicious, but I'll tell you, he's playing with fire when he's dealing with Iraq. I mean, he's met his match, and he know that. And I feel sorry for the brothers who are over there, but Allah says, and the sisters. But I tell you, Allah says you're responsible for your self and well-being. If they they are that responsible for themselves. They would protest against what Bush is doing. I mean, that ain't our war. Why should we have to fight for something that we don't even own? Where do we own a part of this country? Black men will never own a country. White man will never let you get that far in life.
Before you finish, my brother, how about saying a few words to Imam Obama? If he's in the audience, or if you couldn't make it, say a few words to Imam Obama. How Imam?
Imam Obama, I love and respect you, brother. I love all of you brothers and sisters, and I'm asking all of you to do what you can do to support this issue. And I mean, don't say you're going to do this and that and this, and don't stick to it. Stick to what you say you're going to do. That's all I asked, and because I think it's very important that people stand firm with what myself and other youth have come forward to convey such information. And now we don't want to feel that people are condemning us and throwing us to the dogs to be murdered like these cops have murdered other brothers. And I am not so much worried about myself, but I am much worried about the ones who well stepped forward, because the reason I say I don't worry about myself because Allah has the last say in all things, and I leave my faith in Allah. But those who come forward, I wish that all you would let them know that you support them, and that they stay strong and maintain what they know, and stay strong and continue to struggle and fight and bring about this information to the public.
Shukran.
Before we go, let me open up the Quran, and I'd like to read a surah that will end in our conversation with our brother Adam Abdul Hakim.
I'll end it. You open up.
It's called Suratul Asr. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. By the token of time, verily man is in the state of loss, save those who believe, do good works, and exhort one another to truth, and exhort one another to endurance.
The only thing that I wanted to do additional, if there was some way quickly before we could, if you just show the public how you move around. You know, if you would move this way, maybe if you just show them how you have to drag yourself around, let them feel it.
Okay.
Make them feel it. You know, don't just, you know, take that quickly because the guy's coming in.
Okay.
But just move around so we can see how you have to
All of you going around the mission.
Yeah.
Where's the other can?
Right here, yes.
So they give 3
No,
cans.
yeah, I'm not finished.
Just maybe you can try to go to the door, anything, but let us see how you have to get around.
You want to go that way first?
Yeah, any way you can, just so people can see how you have to get around.
So, like this, all over the jail.
So you just slide along.
Yes.
You can't stand.
No, I use the plastic gloves so I keep.
What about the stairs?
There's no
Okay,
stairs.
so good.
That's why they put them in this low. This is the one.
All right. Your brother out there is saying about time is gone.
That's good. We got enough.
Okay.
More than enough.
Things we can do without to build 10 banks. You don't need soda. You don't need potato chips half of the time. You don't need cigarettes. You don't need beer. I'm talking things that adds nothing to your health and nothing to your life. You spend enough money on that to float 30 bags. Someone has to organize it, direct it, and protect it. And someone has to gain your confidence and keep your confidence by being true to you and respectful of you. You should be sick of leaders you can't see and you can't touch. And you have to ask, leader, where are you leading me?
I'd like to know if you could lawsuit spearheaded by Joe Fleming and Bob Law.
The what now?
Board of Education. The lawsuit of Bob Law.
I just know a few basic things about that. I don't know all the details, and I don't think it's fair to elaborate on something that I haven't had time to seriously study.
But what about the idea, though?
The idea is good. The idea is good, but it's not new. Basically good. The what now? The reason Malcolm X was assassinated is for a very old reason that still prevails. Every time a black person in this country show his people the real face of power and what to do about it, he's either assassinated, driven into exile, or driven to suicide. Yeah.
So less is best.
Dr. Clarke, I had the privilege of hearing you speak at the Malcolm X conference, at which we had multitudes of Europeans in Malcolm X caps and T-shirts. I'd like to get your opinion on the involvement of Europeans in our liberation.
I think most of them are opportunists, could be leftovers from the old Socialist Party that sponsored some Malcolm X lectures, which made a whole lot of people assume that Malcolm X became a socialist. He did not really. Malcolm X was a very good strategist. He became what he needed to become in order to push his people toward liberation. I heard again his speech, Ballads of the Bullets, his message to the grassroots. And Malcolm X was a revolutionary thinker, and stripped of all of its European meaning and its Marxism, Malcolm X was a true socialist. So when I say he's a true socialist, I don't want you to think that I think he's an imitation of Europe, but the idea of sharing societies, the idea of deliberate systems didn't start with Europe. The idea of societies where the wealth would be distributed based on need is not a European concept. It was updated. It was wrong for Karl Marx to look at this and say this is primitive communism. He's dead wrong. It was wrong for the black Marxists to keep quiet about it. I don't believe that there's a capitalist solution to our problem. I don't believe there's a communist solution either in the hands of Europeans. I don't believe there's any solution to the African problem that fails to take into consideration African traditionalism and the values that came out of it. We have to effect a wedding between what was already there and what needs to be there. Unfortunately, I yield to no one my admiration for Kwame Nkrumah. Unfortunately, ignoring traditionalism may have been his greatest error and the cause of his downfall, in addition to the CIA.
This man has hung up here for a long time now. Yeah. It never was recognized.
Okay.
I just like to make more of a statement, not a question. This young lady asked about Malcolm X. The one thing I regret was knocking Roy Wilkins, knocking Dr. Martin Luther King. He said the biggest mistake he ever made in his life. You had Koch, who was mayor of this city for 12 years, and nobody in the press, quote, quote, knocked this man like we are now have our own plights, knocking David Dinkins. One of the things that Malcolm said is stop knocking each other. He said, oh, the biggest mistake he ever made. Thank you.
Let me just say this before. Let me just say this. We get our mic back. We get our mic back. I remember Bill Tatum, for whatever it's worth. I remember Bill Tatum ran an editorial for 2.5 years denouncing Ed Koch. So I don't know to whom you're referring when you say. So then, well, that's axiomatic. I mean, that's kind of logical. But I also think we need to be careful. I mean, I'm not speaking for anybody else on the panel. This is just me talking here. I mean, we have to be careful that simply because an individual happens to be of African ancestry and finds him or herself in a position of power or responsibility and fails to use that position in the interest of our people, we have to be careful that we remain mute, we remain politely quiet when that individual continues to serve the interests of other people simply because we wish to preserve a kind of a false unity. I think that's the worst thing we can do. I don't think those of us, and I'm one of those people, in fact, let me say this. Before David Dinkins was elected, some people in this room would remember. I mean, we established a committee out here in Brooklyn. In fact, we organized the first dinner for David Dinkins in Brooklyn. I think Sophia might remember, over the Masonic Temple in Brooklyn. We, on WBAI, we were the first people to have him on there practically every week with all the airspace in the world. Bill Lynch, his chief of staff, used to work for me when I was the director of the station. Now he doesn't return my phone calls. So don't tell me about that. We can't be critical of the failures of the so-called leadership in the African community, whether here and especially on the continent. Because right now, even as we speak, and I'll tell you how we see a convergence of Negro leaders working against our interests at home and abroad. There are 15 members of the United Nations Security Council, 5 which are permanent, and of course 10 which are there on a temporary basis, obviously. On this present round, there are 3 African countries, Ethiopia, Zaire, and Ivory Coast. And as I've said before, I've always had problems with understanding how an African country could call itself the Ivory Coast. But be that as it may, that's a whole other discussion. These 3 countries are on the permanent, on the Security Council. The United Nations, the United States, George Bush is boasting that he can now go to the United Nations and push through a debate to get the United Nations to approve the use of force in the Gulf. And we need to be clear, it's not for the United Nations to use force. It's for the United Nations to approve the use of force, which would mean the United States would have the clear path to use force in the Gulf area. Now, who is supporting it? Britain, France, the United States, of course, and these 2 former so-called socialist republics of China and the Soviet Union, which are thinking with their stomachs and their own national interests rather than with their heads, as it were. You have to have a majority. There are 15 members. So if you have 8 plus, of course, the vote is going to pass. Who are the other 3 people locked in? 3 African countries, Ivory Coast, Zaire, and Ethiopia. Now, on the flip side, if you recall when the invasion, when the US first sent its troops over there, who was the first person to jump up and say, right on? Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson. Who was one of the first people to go over there and see our boys? Ed Towns. Now, he can't come into Brooklyn right here where I live in this district. He can't come in here and see the problems that are in our community, but he can go to the Gulf. And when he came back, what did he say? He said, well, we need to get the other countries to help pay for it. Not that we shouldn't be there, but we need to get the other, our allies, like he has some allies in Europe, to pay for it. Now, I'm saying this to you. Now, you will say, well, we shouldn't criticize these people. I'm sorry, I can't go with that. I can't go with that. I don't want to speak for him, but I'm sure the good doctor has a few things to say about this question, too.
First place, let's get rid of the illusion that there are... Let's get rid of the illusion that there are any independent African nation. They're all sloppy imitation European states. They never became African. The Arabs helped to destroy the Organization of African Unity. They are in Africa, but they're not of Africa. This is the dilemma for tomorrow. When you finish the Southern African dilemma, or the whites, what you gonna do about the Northern African dilemma? And what are the Arabs gonna do when they face the fact that in spite of what their oil, the Western world considers them just a bunch of light-skinned niggers. And they consider us fair game for slavery, even in the name of Islam. What's the black Muslim gonna do? Black people are being killed in the Sudan solely because they're not Muslim. I don't belong to anything or advocate belong to anything. It is not an instrument of my liberation. Religion is an artificial formation anyway. Spirituality is the only thing that really needs to prevail. All Western, organized Western religions are male chauvinist cults. So what do you lose? What do you lose when you leave? You might gain your common sense. The worst thing that's been done to me in recent years and the worst thing that's being done to me right now been done to me by people who are in the church every time the door opens. Very often it's a haven for hypocrites. I don't mean the church can't be good, it shouldn't be good. But everything that touches your life should be an instrument of your liberation or be thrown into the ash can of history. You ain't got no time for anything that fails to contribute to your liberation. I thought my friend Okenjumbo had a question.
Obanjoko, Dr. Clarke is in a state of shock. He said he has not heard a question from you. He can't leave here. Now, I know you're right. I know you're writing it out, right? Brother, let's take a question on this one. Well, I couldn't answer for the Reverend Herbert Daltrey and why the photo is in the church. I just want to go back to something because I don't wish the brother to leave here with the impression that because I said we ought to criticize, that conversely it means that that's all we ought to do.
I come out the same you about the same subject.
Excuse me?
I come out that debate with you on the same subject.
Well, you know, I must say, my entire life has been devoted to struggle. You want to struggle about it? We can talk, we can struggle about it. But I'm hoping we can converse right now. I'm saying to you that it is important. So if you are satisfied with the Negro leadership that's here and we ought not to be criticized, that's fine. I'm saying I'm not. And I'm simply not going to stand back and permit them to do what they're doing in our name and not say anything about it. As a brother said, look, I view a microphone and a pen and paper as the brothers in the field view an AK-47. It has to be, as the doctor said, an instrument of liberation. If you are so-called, if your theater of struggle is electoral politics, then it must be in the interest, it must serve the interests of the people from whose community you come. And if you fail to do that, then it is our duty as a people from that community to criticize you, nay, to remove you. I mean, so therefore, if anything less than that is unacceptable to me. Now, what I'm saying to you, at the same time, I recognize that there are people who are beating up on David Dinkins for all sorts of different reasons. It's like, because they're beating up on him for a set of reasons, are we to say, well, we ought not to be critical of him for constructive reasons? I can't accept that. And therefore, I would add that, look, I don't want to prolong this any further. I started to say that there are a number of opportunists, there are a number of detractors, there are racists, there are certain ethnic groups who believe that this city belongs to them, that everything, that all that we are here for is to provide labor and a consumer market for the cheaply manufactured commodities, which is essentially what we do. And they believe that David Dinkins ought to be there only to serve their interests. And sad to say, that's exactly how he's behaving. Yeah. And that's what I have a problem with. Okay? Sure.
We have a president whose name is Bush.
You have a president whose name is Bush. See, that's where we have a problem. That's where the problem. You have a president whose name is Bush. I don't have a president named Bush. That's where the problem is, man.
He hates Alphonse D'Amato.
Who? Bush hates D'Amato.
Out front, out front, they shake hands and they smile. Thank you. There were people in the Jewish community. They had a lot of negative things about that. I know something. They quietly say around the back door. They don't come out front and say, one of the few ones who ever said anything about cops out front, outside the gay press office, was Donald Trump. And he called him an idiot. But there's a lot of guys who do this. But what they do, they close ranks. Try to get a Chinese to say something bad about a Chinese in public. You say these things, we don't want to tear down what we have built up. Let's work with them like they do. Don't come up and bludgeon someone who's made try to work within a framework with that team. That's what I was saying about Dr. Max. He said the thing that he regretted, he was one of the most outspoken persons against Martin Luther King and against Martin Luther. But he changed his opinion. He says, I still agree with you, but we will use another attack. And the things that we are on course with, I will support him 100%. Okay. But a lot of things I still don't go along with.
Okay, I understand your point.
That's what I'm trying to get across to you. And if we got to start attacking minority leaders out front, who ran the book, I think they attack Trump anytime. When we are talking right now.
Okay, okay. I do have quite a few things to say, but I won't. Let's, brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond. First of all, I think it's important to understand, and Malcolm in his last days and during that last period did a number of things for tactical reasons. They weren't strategic. And if he had that discussion with you, and he may have well had it, but what made Malcolm who he was because his critical analysis of the Negro leadership that was out there at the time. If it wasn't for Malcolm making those critical analysis, we wouldn't even understand what was probably going on in the world. The other thing, you can't make an association between what white people do and what African people do. You understand? The white people are aligned in a common agenda against African people. So yeah, Koch and all of them got something in common. So why are they going to talk about each other and create confusion when they all got the same objective? They just got different tactics. If Dinkins had done 20 things and 12 of the things was in our benefit and 8 not, we wouldn't attack him because we knew he was trying. But if he did 20 things and all 20 things was against the liberation of our people or even a qualitative change in life of our people, then we got to criticize him because what we do then is that we would not criticize Jonas Savimbi, we would not criticize Mobutu, we would not criticize Renamo and the rest of those fascist black, I don't even know what to call them, who are killing the masses of our people. And Dr. Clarke laid it out. You got there is a Negro mayor, there's a Negro commissioner, there's a Negro attorney in the Bronx, Larry Davis or Hakeem laid out the whole process. That Negro attorney ain't did nothing. The police still killing our people, white race is still killing our people, and that Negro that's there who was in alliance with Bush around the killing of our youth in Atlanta. In Atlanta, who was in a conspiracy not to raise the question of the Klan because they talked about they didn't want no race riot, and Dinkins, whose history, even before he became mayor, was suspect. You understand, brother? You need to really do your homework. Basically what you're talking about, because if we don't criticize them, then our people's going to be going further into whatever they're studying.
Okay. All right. The sister right here, please.
And working with the enemy to build the economic base, to use power means not only to just stay directly within the community. Yeah.
I think you should work both ways. I was asked the question myself. You work both ways, but work with some kind of caution and don't lose who you are. I was asked the question some years ago, in my angriest years, that about cooperation with other people in relationship to black struggle. And I said, if my people are cold, I'll invade hell and borrow some fire from the devil. But if you want to buy my soul, no sale.
Dr. Clarke, I know when you first started out, it was very difficult, like you and all the other pioneers. Things was rough. Many of us didn't understand you then because we were all Americanized, and it was a hard struggle for you. Now, you mentioned that you had the staying power because you had that continuity. And you also had that African spirit that needed to guide you on. Today, now, most of us we have more people more conscious than we had before. Now, what you project for the future? Do you think that we will survive based on the level that we are going? We like we are rolling stone. We're picking up people little by little. Do you think we're getting stronger, or what do you think?
We were getting stronger, then we bought a bag of worms called integration. And that diluted our movement. I don't mean our children shouldn't go to any school they want to or are qualified to go to. That wasn't what I'm talking about. I don't mean we shouldn't go in a hotel we qualified to go into or got the money to pay for. That's not what I'm talking about. But we should have maintained our institutions, maintain our sense of self, maintain our sense of community structure, just the same. We didn't have to dismantle all of this in the name. But my answer to the brother's question is that I came to the New York City from Columbus, Georgia. I was born in Union Springs, Alabama, poor sharecropper parents. I came town I couldn't read the library, read books from the library. And I could read, go in the library, check out 6 books, read them, go back and check out 6 more. I went hog wild just reading. And fortunately, I was trained by some of the great black masters who took me in the hand. Schomburg, who trained me in the interrelationship of African history to world history. Willis N. Huggins of the Old Harlem History Club, who trained me in the political meaning of history. Leo Hansberry of Howard University, who taught me the philosophical meaning of history. And the great Caribbean scholars, J.A. Rogers on bibliography and the role of the African personalities in history. Charles C. Cypher, another great Caribbean scholar, forgotten now, taught me something about Africa's contribution to the concept of the brotherhood of man. Raphael Powers, still alive, wrote the first book disputing the name Negro. His book called The Human Side of a People and Their Right Name. And the offspill of the Garvey movement at the same time, the Italian-Ethiopian War. I was into all of this action. I was being reborn, but being baptized in the blackness and the Africanness of my own people. Kwame Nkrumah was part of the Old Harlem History Club at the Y. We used to debate with him. He was studying to be a preacher. We said, boy, Africa don't need no damn preacher. Just lost the war. I mean, it was a rich heritage. I was self-educated. Didn't go to college until I came out of the army and went under the GI Bill of Rights. And then the professors bored me because I knew so much more than them because I'd read ahead of them. I got kicked out of NYU for criticizing the way they teach white history. Man, I had a rich education, but the most important thing was education in relationship to my own people. And I ran into a whole lot of people that's unknown now. A bunch of Caribbean activists who was pro-Japanese. A book is going to be written on called Black Nippon. They were supporting the Japanese cause. Japanese nationalists, black, mostly from the Caribbean. The Caribbeans always send that dissident idealist to the United States. We benefit by it. Someone needs to write about it. I've done something on the Caribbean presence in the African American freedom movement. You wonder why I keep harping on this Caribbean thing, because I related to the Caribbean community for over 50 years and married into the community, so I have some more than a casual relationship.
We'll take 2 questions, and we have to go. Somebody who we haven't heard from before. The brother right here, and somebody way in the back. Brother O, you get the last word, okay? Right here.
I would like to know if you elaborate on the concept of spirituality, struggle back with people.
Spirituality is the acceptance of man. When I say man, I mean mankind, or humankind. Acceptance of the forces of nature. The African believed that there was a spiritual force in the universe before someone formalized it and dogmatized it into something called religion and something called a God. That was man's finest hour on this earth, because all life was dear. All life commanded respect. For spirituality, there was no extensive need for churches. Religion was not a weekend thing because it was part of the totality. Spirituality was part of your total existence every day of your life, other than a thing that you departmentalize for the weekend or dress up, go to. John Jackson has written a book called Christianity Before Christ. It frightens a lot of people, but it's really a good book dealing with spirituality before the Christian period. He's also written another book called Pagan Origins of the Christ Myth. All societies got that Christ story. All societies got that flood story. All societies got that creation story. You only know one. You think that's universal? That society never heard of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve what? No, what you talking about? But when you look at man's, this is the reason why Africans could build a whole society and not only have no jails, no word in their language that meant jail. They was guided by spirituality, the interlacing of the family structure. Okay.
Sisters and brothers, before you leave, please, just give us a minute. It's going to end in a minute. Just one minute, please. I'd like to ask you to do a couple of things. As you said, we are going to have this program here on the 15th, Saturday the 15th. It's a program, we are going to try to bring together a lot of families of people, relatives of people who have their sons and daughters about to die in the sands of Arabia. One of the things that we want to get everybody out of there, but more particularly African children who are sons and daughters who are in the Persian Gulf. As I said before, 44% of the women there are African women. And there is an explanation other than military for this exceptionally high number of women of all races in the Persian Gulf. They are in the service, yes, but they are more there to serve than to do military work, if you know what I mean. Because the Saudi government, and I'm not being cynical, it's a very real point. The Saudi society does not permit anybody to mess with their women. So we have had this phenomenally high number of women sent to Saudi Arabia to service the boys who are there. And we find that 44% of them happen to be our sisters and brothers, parents of our children who are left here with some men who are wearing aprons, waving and kissing their wives goodbye, as they go off to war. We are going to bring the families together because we want to take the front on this and to tie it into what is happening in our communities. If you want to spend money to fight anything, fight the poverty and the hunger and the unemployment and so on in our communities. We are saying that not money for war in the Gulf, but money for human beings and the homeless and so on in the society. So we hope that you come out on the 15th And if you know of anyone who is in the military, who has people in the Persian Gulf area, please sign up on the sheet, and not only because of that, but if you want to work on it, we have a sheet outside. Please sign up if you'd like to help us work on this project, because we'd like, over the period of the holidays, to take a few thousand people into Manhattan, across Brooklyn Bridge, and really make a statement on behalf of the African community about how we feel about what is happening right now. Also, it's at noon on the 15th, Saturday the 15th, right here, the 15th, Saturday the 15th of December. Also, I'm sorry I don't have the numbers with me, but if you know, it doesn't take much to call information and find out the telephone numbers of the embassies of Ethiopia, Zaire, and Ivory Coast. Ethiopia, Zaire, and Ivory Coast. Call them tomorrow and tell them how you feel about them supporting what Bush is doing. And you might want to call LIB and all the stations that you know of and register this point. I want to thank you for coming out, and hopefully you'll all be out here again with us on December 15th.